Hey everybody, thanks for being with us. Here with my good friend Pokey, and we're back again trying to catch some hybrids and stripers on the Chattahoochee River, kind of mid-late spring, and we're going to see if we can catch us a few today, so y'all stay with us. Really excited about our show today. We're actually on the Chattahoochee River with a good friend of mine named Pokey, and we are trying to catch hybrid bass in the Chattahoochee River. Now we get there and we're on a slack water, which means they're not generating any electricity at the dam above us. So what we're doing is we're just kind of fishing around until they start generating current from the dam above, and when they start generating that current, that's what activates these fish into feeding. So that's what we're waiting for. He thumped it too, brother. We got one finally working on it. I hadn't seen him yet. I'm not sure where he is, but he feels like the right kind.
Oh yeah, that's a nice one. About 3-4 pounder.
Yeah, 3 or 4 pounder. We'll come around here. Yep, this is probably a hybrid. We got up in here in some slack water, saw the bait moving, and this one thumped her Cordell rattling spot, rattle bait.
That's a nice one.
Yeah. Tell you what, Pokey, I'll swing him in. It's all right.
You swinging in? Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to help you, but I was going to let him go.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's a pretty decent one. And
3
they
pounds.
do not give
It's
up.
a striped bass almost, isn't it?
I don't know.
No, not quite. No, it's a hybrid.
That's a hybrid. You can tell they're hybrids because he's got a little bit of a broken stripe on him.
Here you go.
Thank you, sir. Can you pull that out for me? Always helps to have somebody that's prepared. He wasn't coming off, was he? I don't know if y'all ever heard of a tournament called a rodeo, but this is what you have to do. You have to lasso them. You got to hook it. You hear him going rant, rant, rant. He's let me go. We're gonna let him go. Pokey's gonna show us how to put the brown suit on him. Fishing was pretty slow for a while down on the river, and then Pokey started using what we call cut bait. We catch a little fish down there, they're 10-12 inches long, called a skipjack, and basically they just cut the bait into 1.5 to 2 inch sections, put it on a circle hook with a weight, and just let it flow with the current, and he ended up catching some. We've been fishing a pretty good while. Pokey finally put some live bait on, or what we call cut bait. It's not really alive, it's dead. Come over here.
Oh, that's a hybrid.
And we're not sure if that's a hybrid or a
It's like a hybrid.
catfish, or at this point we're not caring a whole lot. Oh yeah, that's a hybrid. That's a nice one. If he comes off, he'll be 10 or 12 pounds, Pokey. Here, I got you. Can I swing him, you think?
Just like you had him last time?
Yeah. There you go. Good job, brother. Now when we talk about cut bait, Pokey, explain to us what that means.
So we're talking about cut bait. A few days ago, I was throwing a cast net for shad. It's like little fish, look like little herrings.
Here you go.
And you know, they don't stay alive long, but I freeze them, and then on tough days like this, I just cut them in little chunks and put them on a circle hook, and the least amount of weight I can get away with, and just throw it out there, let it sit where I think the fish might be at, and look what happened.
So what we're waiting on is them to start generating power, and we're in some kind of slower water, and we were throwing artificials out, and he set a cut bait out, and it took off with it. Pretty nice one. Good job, man.
Yep, thank you.
Pokey hooked up with a nice hybrid on cut bait, and typically when we fish for these hybrids this time of year, we don't use cut bait. We use top waters and we use swim baits and things like that. In fact, when we filmed the show last year, we wore them out on little swim baits. But this year, for some reason, they didn't seem to want any kind of artificial bait, and when Pokey started using cut bait, he started getting bites, and that's what we were ultimately there for, was to catch fish. What may be happening is there's this one small area where these hybrids are, and a lot of people come up there to fish this time of year. We were a little bit later this year, so the fish had been highly pressured. And that may be a good tip for you. A lot of times when fish are highly pressured, you may have to go away from artificial bait to live bait or real bait to catch those fish. So here's the bass fisherman pride lesson for this this show. we're throwing artificials, and in the last 5 minutes, Pokey's caught 2 pretty nice ones on cut bait. So I'm just about to swallow my pride right here and borrow a piece of cut bait. What you think it is, Pokey?
Yeah, I would definitely switch over if you want to try to catch some fish right now.
You think it's a hybrid?
Yeah, I think it's a hybrid.
It's gonna get you in the motor, isn't it? Yeah. That may be a little better one, huh? Oh, yeah. You need a net, or we good?
I think we're good.
Yeah, these fish, we talked about them last year, but y'all may not have seen that show. We call them hybrids, and you know, typically a hybrid is a mix of something, and this fish is not an exception to that rule. It's in this Chattahoochee River, native to it is a fish called a white bass. And gosh, probably 20 years ago, turn and show them that fish, Pokey. Probably 20 years ago, they brought in saltwater stripers and bred them with these freshwater white bass. And that's what made the hybrid. Man, they're awful fun to catch, aren't they, Pokey?
Oh yeah, they definitely are. I'm a saltwater fisherman. I'm telling you, they fight just like redfish.
And the simple rig he's using, you guys may be able to see it. It's 2 little split shots and a circle hook. What size circle hook is that?
It's a 1/0 circle hook. I always try to, depends what size cut bait you use. If you have big cut bait, go up to like a 2-3/0, depending on your size, of course. But I always like these as small as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good job, brother.
Thank you.
I was throwing what we call a rattling bait. This is a cotton cordell rattling spot. I think Pokey was throwing a rattle trap, and it's a great bait to throw for those fish because it imitates a shad that they're eating. But normally when we're catching these bigger hybrids, I'm throwing something like a swim bait. This is a Buckeye Lures J-Will swim bait head. I think this is a 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce with a Kitech swim bait that looks like a minnow. It really doesn't matter the color as long as it looks like a shad, one with a green back and a white belly, but that white belly is important because it needs to look like a shad. And these are the artificials that typically you're going to catch them on. You got a fish?
Yeah.
What you got there, man? Now, was that cut bait or was that a
cut bait?
Okay. We're starting to get a little water movement, but that didn't really seem to matter to Pokey. He's going to catch them on cut bait anyway. See what we got right here. I need to get out of your way. Nice.
It's a little baby.
Hey, I'll take them babies all day long, won't you?
They're fun.
So again, what he's doing, he's just letting a little circle hook on a couple of lead weights sink behind the boat. But we're starting to get a little water movement, so we're hoping these fish are going to start chasing. We can catch them on some artificials, right?
Yep.
Good job, man.
Yeah, I was just seeing some fish blowing up right here, and then I heard my reel go off. And you can see the water's coming up real quick.
Coming up, yep. The current got so fast where we were, it got difficult to really fish, so we pulled up our anchor and we just drifted with the current. And we fished on down the river about a 1/2 mile. Little whitey. Now this is the fish we were talking about that they bred with the striper. It's a white bass. You can see they're a little bit different shaped. They will stick a hook in your hand if you're not careful.
Yes.
They don't get quite as big. They're considered a panfish. And that used to be all you caught down here, was these little whites. What happened was the current got really difficult up there, and we caught a fish or two, but couldn't catch them real good. So we just kind of let the anchor go, and we're drifting with the current and trying to hit kind of any little current break that we can. I just caught a white bass doing that, and
maybe we can pick up a few more before we have to leave today. That's at least the plan.
Another thing I had to do is I switched to a heavier jig head to about a 1/2 ounce, because I was throwing like a 1/4 ounce and it was just swimming up on top of the swim bait. And so that, as soon as I switched it up and I got hits, and I ended up catching one too. So
you heard Pokey say earlier, use the lightest weight you can get away with, but we couldn't get away with a 1/4 ounce today, so he switched over to that bigger one and started getting bit. I went back to the rattle trap and got bit.
After we drifted down the river for a little while, we just didn't catch any fish, and I knew a place a mile or two down the river where a creek came in and created a sandbar, which created a break in the current. So Pokey and I pulled up and went down and fished there.
So what we've done is we've moved, the river got so high we moved way down and got on any place you can get breaks in this current. Fish are still moving up the river. So we moved down here and we're catching some whites, but I've also caught some hybrids in this same place. I'm throwing a rattle trap. Anything that kind of looks like a shad, that's what we'll catch them on. I think I probably talked Pokey into putting on a rattle trap.
Yeah,
too.
he sure did. I had a swim bait on first. That's like my go-to lure wherever I go to first. But as soon as we pulled up, you got bit. So
That's what a white looks like. That's about average size, about 3/4 of a pound or 1/2 pound. They're good to eat, and you can catch a lot of them this time of year.
They sure are delicious.
This is maybe what my dad used to call the bus stop. They get in here good. They're not very big, but it's fun to throw up there and get a bite on every cast. If you got kids, they're pretty easy to catch this time of year too. And you can catch them on other things other than a rattle trap, little
There it is.
crappie jigs and stuff like that. That's kind of what they look like. You want to give them a kiss?
Okay.
No, I don't. So Pokey, I'm throwing a rattle bait. I don't know if it makes a difference. Same color, same everything, but this is a little different brand. It's called a Cotton Cordell Rattling Spot. And the beauty of these baits is not only how they work, but they were on clearance at the Walmart for $1 a piece. So I bought like 10 of them.
These are like 3 times as much right here, and I haven't caught a single one yet.
So, but as we sit here in the boat, every fish I catch, they get a little more expensive, okay? You do want to be real careful with these fish when you're taking them off. They're hard to get in the mouth, but their gills are real sharp. My friend Jared showed me how to you squeeze them behind the head. It kind of paralyzes them like a bass instead of in the mouth. If you squeeze them right behind the gill plate, but be careful of that gill plate because it can get real sharp. That's a pretty decent one. Hey Pokey, clearly you love to fish. How did you get into fishing?
Well, I've always loved it, but I just never had the time, or anybody to teach me how to do it.
Right.
But after I got out of the military, I decided to move to Florida, and in South Florida, Tampa, Florida specifically, and I just love fishing. I love cooking, so both of those combined, it's like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, we love his cooking too. It's awesome.
And that's just how I got into fishing. And I just, I like to talk to people. So when I'm out fishing, I'm not scared to, to ask somebody, hey, what are you using as bait? Or, what kind of lure is this? And that's not really how I picked up everything, just by talking to people. And
to me, that's one of the beauties of fishing, sports. A lot of people are secretive about things or want the competitive edge, but really in fishing, people are willing to share information a little more. So,
down here in Columbus, there's so many times when I'm out on the river walk and I'm catching fish and I have a lot of bait, and I have kids come by with their, or anybody really come by and they don't have any bait, and I don't mind sharing. I'm just, okay, here you go, here's some bait, and hopefully you catch some fish and have a good time, him and his kid, and it's just that's what fishing is to me.
That's awesome.
And when I'm out here, by myself or with friends, I meditate and I talk to God. That's like my time with God and the fish, really.
Yeah.
And it's like one of the best stress relievers there is for me now. I don't drink anymore. I had a big problem with that after the military. And now with fully committing to God, having God on my side and doing His work, treating people right, being honest with myself and with God changed my life. It really did. And I haven't had the urge to drink in, I can't even tell you how long.
Wow. So kind of that took place when you were in the military. You saw some pretty rough stuff.
I sure did. I lost my best friend in there. We got we call it 11 days in the wake up before we were supposed to go home. We got overran, and 9 of us, didn't make it that day. And
wow.
The youngest one was 19, so it took me back a lot. And it was hard for me to deal with that.
But when you got home, the Lord kind of took hold of you after a little while and turned your life around.
Yeah, He sure did. He always, my mom kept praying for me, my neighbors kept praying for me, everybody kept praying for me while I was in Florida, because they knew I was lost out there. But as soon as they kept praying. As soon as I came back, and my life just changed dramatically.
That's awesome.
Into the in a good way. I wake up happy. I go to bed happy.
Being rich and having things doesn't matter. Having that peace is what matters.
Yep, to me that's what matters the most. Having my family and having God.
Maybe you're in that same boat as Pokey. Maybe you kind of lost your way, and really it's just as simple as turning back around toward God and asking Him, hey, God, would you forgive me, and would you come back and live in my life and give me that peace and joy that I originally had? And He will do it every time. He promises in His Word that He will. So thanks for sharing that story with us.
Oh,
man.
Yeah, definitely. And this is from, I go to AA meetings quite a bit, and there's a saying that, it's just so strong. It says, God will do for us what we cannot do for ourselves.
That's right.
And things will materialize if we work for it. And those two things, I say to myself every day, and it makes a huge difference.
That's awesome, man.
Now I just need to catch a fish.
One of my favorite things about fishing is kind of the tackle game. I love collecting tackle. I love researching rods and reels and things like that. And I've been fishing for a really, really long time. And a lot of times I'll go through some of my old tackle and kind of pull out old things and fish with them, almost just to be nostalgic. It's a lot of fun to catch fish on baits that I used a long, long time ago. Well, we got ready to go this year, and some of you may have seen a show that we did down in the Keys. It was a great week, but I don't fish in saltwater a lot, and we needed some conventional tackle, and I only had one reel, but I remembered that I had an old pin reel, and my son didn't have a conventional reel, so I said, you know what, I've got this old pin reel, and this is it. It's a Pin Peerless, but when I got it out, man, there was crusty stuff all over it. Almost looked like rust. It wouldn't even turn, wouldn't even reel. And so I took it all apart, took all the screws out of it, sprayed a bunch of WD-40 on it, left it overnight, cleaned it all up, put it back together. And when I put it back together, believe it or not, it actually worked. And my son actually got to fish with it in the Keys, and it was a pretty cool thing that something this old and this terrible and looked like wouldn't even work, I got to kind of bring back to life by just doing a couple of little small things to it, and it works really, really well now. And I kind of redeemed this reel out of rust and corrosion back into life and being able to use it again. And that's really what God does for us. He redeems us out of a life of sin into a life of following Him. He forgives us of our sin, and He starts a new life. And a lot of people think, you know what, God couldn't do that for me. God doesn't know what I'm like. God doesn't know the things that I've done in my life. I'm too bad of a person to be redeemed, to be pulled out of that. But that's just not true. God's in the redemption business. God's in the business of bringing old things back to life, making old things new, bad things new. In fact, if you look at the New Testament, there was a guy in the New Testament that basically persecuted and killed Christians. And he came to know Christ, and he ended up writing about 3/4 of the New Testament. His name is Paul. And you can look in Acts chapter 22. He tells his whole story about how he persecuted Christians, how he came to know Christ, and then how eventually he was sent to preach to the Gentiles. And so God is in the business of redeeming lives that feel like they can't be redeemed. And if you're sitting out there today and go, man, I can't do that. I can't give my heart and life to Christ. I've been too bad. I've done too many bad things. It's just not true. Pokey has a very similar story to that also that you'll get to hear today. And I wanted to read you guys a verse of scripture that really illustrates this and hopefully will encourage your heart. It's Titus chapter 2, verses 11 through 13. And listen to what it says. For the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people. And I love that, all people. It teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age while we wait for the blessed hope, the appearance of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ. And here's the important part of this verse. Who gave himself for us to redeem us all from wickedness and purify for himself a people that are his very own, eager to do what is good. So if you're watching tonight and you're thinking, man, I'll never be good enough, you know what? You don't have to be good enough. God forgives you of your sins and redeems you from death and sin to life in him. And if you want that tonight, it's just as simple as asking him to forgive you of your sins, asking him to come and live in your heart and be Lord of your life. Thanks so much for listening tonight. Hey guys, what we do at Go Fish Ministries is share the gospel and encourage believers in their walk with Christ. We do this through a variety of events such as wild game dinners, kids camps, men's events, music events, or even if you or someone you know just needs a day on the water. Go Fish Ministries wants to point you toward Jesus and help you know him better. Contact us through our website. We'd love to serve you any way we can. God bless you and go fish. Attaboy. That's Pokey's turn.
What is that?
You're whacking the big ones now, buddy.
Oh, it's skipjack time.
Pokey, cut that up. Let's eat it.
Okay.
That's sushi.
That's almost bait size.
Hey, something really cool that we get to do this week is our friend Pokey is going to give us a little bit of a cooking lesson. He's going to take some of these hybrids and show you how to fix them where you're going to love them.
We're gonna do Baja style fish tacos. So what you wanna do is take some paper towels, put them about your bowl or your plate, take the fish, the fillets you're gonna end up frying, put them in here, let them dry off a little bit. Go ahead and toast your tortillas. So when you drop tortillas in, they don't take that long. I wanna say probably 30 seconds on each side. When you put the oil in, make sure the pan is hot before you pour the oil in, otherwise it might stick. You want to have enough oil in the pan so when you put the fish in, that it has some room to float. So I'm just going to prepare the toppings for the tacos. So I'm going to start with the tomato, and you're going to cube this up. I'm going to dice up some onion. This is going to be for, multiple people, and some won't like onions, some won't like tomatoes, some won't like cilantro, so I'm keeping everything separate. And the cilantro, you just need a rough chop. You don't have to chop it real fine. Limes, if you don't like cabbage, you're more than welcome to use lettuce, or if you don't like red cabbage, use regular cabbage. You always want to save the avocado for last because it turns brown really, really fast. And you cut it through the middle. It does have a pit, so I cut around the pit, and once you've gone all the way around the avocado, you can just twist it open like that. Okay, for the batter, real simple. 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Then we're going to use 1 teaspoon of salt, about 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder, about 1/2 teaspoon. And now what you want to do is you want to get your club soda, make sure it's nice and sparkly. Get that ready, and mix all your dry seasonings together. And add a little bit of water at a time so it prevents it from clumping. Okay, so now for the sauce to sprinkle on top of your taco. It's really, really simple as well. You want to get about, let's see, I like my stuff pretty saucy, so I'm gonna go with a cup of mayo. And you need about a 3/4 cup of sour cream for the other part. So you're gonna want to mix that up real quick. Take some of the lemon, squeeze the lemon down so you get some more juice out of it. You should need about a tablespoon of lemon. about a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and half a teaspoon of garlic, because this is they call it a garlic and lime crema. And for my personal touch, I like a little bit of sriracha sauce on it. The oil's been going for a while. You want it right around 350 degrees. Get it in some flour. The flour is going to help the batter stick into the fish. Take the fish, put it in the batter. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes. I kept the fish moving, so it's fried evenly. And the reason why you want it at 350 degrees is so you can get this nice golden, crispy color and texture on the outside.
That's beautiful.
When I make a taco, I get myself a flour tortilla or 2 corn tortillas if I have them, and I start with my fish. And after the fish, put a little bit of cabbage on there, and couple of red onions, some tomatoes, and for me, it's always cilantro. Squeeze a little bit of lemon or lime on there, whichever you prefer. Last, I take my taco like this, take me some sauce, and drizzle it all over. Here you go, guys. Fish tacos Baja style. Quick, easy, good for a party. Takes about 50 minutes.
We really appreciate you guys joining us this week. My friend Pokey and I have had a great time fishing on the Chattahoochee River, actually a couple days on the Chattahoochee River. And we were catching fish called hybrid bass and white bass. Caught some other species too, but we just really had a great couple days on the water, caught some catfish, just had a big time. So Pokey, I really appreciate you being with us this week. And if you're ever in a place where you're struggling too, maybe Pokey can speak to your story. Maybe he can tell you kind of how to get out of that place.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how far you think you're gone. God will always take you back. It's amazing. Just submit and say, God, I know what I've done, and just please forgive me and take me back, and it will happen.
Amen. And His grace covers everything, man. His grace covers everything. You never can be too bad for God to save you out of a bad place. And that's really the message we want you all to hear today.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for being with us this week. I had a great time fishing with my buddy Pokey, and to be honest with you, it was a little bit tough. We went fishing 3 or 4 times to try to get this show, and that's the way it goes sometimes. You go sometimes and catch them like crazy, and then sometimes you don't. That's just the fishing game, but it was a lot of fun anyway. So thanks so much for being with us, and join us next time.